Artificial intelligence is changing everything. I'm on a journey to use AI to simplify my life. You're welcome to join me as I explore, experiment, and share everything I learn. Quick disclaimer, this series is more for me than it is for you. I offer no guarantee that this will be either entertaining or informative. With that, let's look at this next topic.
Hello and welcome. In the last video, we talked through the different readings, the course that Professor Gemini assigned to us for this for learning about AI. So this video, we'll be talking through my experience of doing the readings for this first topic, this first unit of just kind of the AI overview, right? And now these readings took a little bit longer than I expected. It was reminiscent of when I was in college a little bit. But let's go through and see how Professor Gemini did at assigning readings and what I learned while completing them. So here we have the output from when I asked for the readings and whatnot. This is just for the topic one, so kind of the general AI knowledge, AI overview type of of of, uh, of readings. So this first, these four I have listed out in this subsection 1. So starting with this first one, it looks like it's a research paper. EGIRTI, it looks like, is an international journal for research and technology and whatnot. But at the same time, it looks like there's only one person. Normally, the research papers I'm familiar with have a number of professors, number of students, number of graduate students all working on it. So I'm not sure how peer-reviewed or whatnot this is. I think if you go to the bottom, it doesn't say, so there's some references and whatnot, but there isn't any reference of peer review, which is important when it comes to research papers. So that's on the first base, kind of evaluating what kind of research paper did Gemini recommend us to read. On first glance, I don't know if it's peer reviewed, but let's look into the actual content and see what it has. Now, I won't go through the entire article. This one's pretty short, but a lot of the other ones aren't. So I'll give you an overview of what I got from this article. My favorite sentence is that, let's see, where is it? Here we go. AI is the study of ideas which enable computers to do the things that make people seem intelligent. One of the reasons I like this is because it said make people seem intelligent. And I like kind of that, almost a tongue-in-cheek. Not sure if it was intended, but I appreciated it. But it's a good definition of AI, really, where AI is, or studying artificial intelligence is the study of those things that make computers seem to mimic the intelligence of humans. Reasoning, knowledge, planning, learning, communication, perception, move and manipulate objects. That's maybe more robotics. But still, it's making machines or computers that appear to have human intelligence, right? Artificially creating intelligence. So I think that's a good introduction as far as what AI is and kind of what we're getting into about learning about AI and whatnot. Now this article goes into different types: machine learning, natural language processing, automation, robotics, machine vision, knowledge-based systems, neural networks, etc. A lot of applications, kind of a mile wide and an inch deep on a lot of different things. So it's really interesting, somewhat of a shorter article, but my main lessons from this article were, of course, the first off, it's not a traditional research paper that I would expect to see, and so I need to be aware of that and evaluate that on my end as well, not just blindly trust the articles that Gemini points me to. But on the other side, there is a lot to learn about in artificial intelligence. This is kind of the beginning of my... I've had some experience with, like, a little bit of artificial intelligence, but since this is the beginning of my journey, really diving deep, it's a good article to help me understand the breadth of what I'm trying to learn. So overall, I think this was on balance, a plus for Gemini. We'll give it a positive 1 for now. Let's go to the next research article. Now this is more what I would consider a standard research article. You can see, I believe these are different authors. Yeah, okay, so there's a number of different authors. this looks more like I know it's free, so I imagine that it's not perfect. It's probably like a journal of medicine or something that I probably should be getting these from to be more scientifically valid. However, looking at the number of authors, let's see if there are. Does it have? Oh, there's copyright and license information as well. What if we open access article, 2021, so not super frequent or not super recent. Does it have any citations? Yeah, so also a large number of citations. I think for this article specifically, is this the one that was just compiling a bunch of um, other papers? Does not look like it. No, so this is another research article that's kind of a mile wide and inch deep, which is kind of what we were going for with this first subtopic. Um, Now this is really long. I and at this point, I was starting to realize that this was going to be a lot of reading, and I didn't really want to do that all myself. So I believe I started. Yes, let me pull this up. As you can see, I have my Gemini prompt here. Um, I started doing. Oh right, this is the one that was problematic. Um, Essentially, with this one, I started doing. This is a good. This is a good stuff. A good point here to illustrate what I was doing. So I copied and pasted one of the sections from the article, and then I said, "Hey, can you summarize this into bullet points? Keep the organization, include one or two main headings, provide another sub bullet that explains the concept." That was mostly applicable for like the mathematics section, where they were talking about some things that I was not quite familiar with. Um, so, anyways, I copied and pasted in here, and then said, "Hey, can you summarize it?" And it was like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." And it summarized it. AI here in chemistry breaks some, limitations of manual feature selection, which I'm sure you all know what that is because I absolutely did. But that's why I have the simpler terms. Kind of a newer way to do chemical analysis and whatnot. And this was really good for me because I am somebody that studies a lot better when I have kind of a framework to stick things to. So I wouldn't recommend, if you're in college, if you're studying for a class, I would not recommend doing this and stopping here. For me and how I study, this is a great starting point. This summary helps me set up a framework where then when I read the actual material, I kind of know what's going on. I can just kind of stick the new facts within that framework instead of trying to create the framework on the fly while I'm learning the facts. So this was really helpful for me, being able to have this create a framework, and then additionally, what you're seeing here is I after I had it summarize the chemistry section. Oh right, one other thing, I didn't know what I didn't know what spectroscopy was, and it mentioned that in the chemical section. So I was like, hey, can you define it for me? It's like, well, the article doesn't do that. And I was like, great, can you provide a definition from a web search? And it did. It was how matter absorbs and emits light, essentially. So the first thing that comes to mind, if you've seen like the light go through a prism that splits into a rainbow, kind of spectroscopy. Not super relevant to AI, but if you've seen any like Pink Floyd T-shirts, it's kind of the idea. But yeah, not super relevant to AI. Only that I didn't know what it was, and I said, hey, can you help me understand what that is? And then I had it create a 10-question quiz to help me review the material, make sure I understood it. And that's because I go into this, maybe I'll go into this a little bit later, but one of the main problems with using AI to study is that a lot of people use it as a crutch in the sense that they don't do enough cognitive load to actually understand the material. A lot of people are using AI and just offloading a lot of the cognitive load, just trying to get through things quickly. And while they're learning how to prompt, they may not be learning the actual content that they're learning, that they're supposed to be learning, right? And so AI and Gemini still has accuracy problems. There's still things that they hallucinate, etc. And even, I don't know if that will ever go away. I'll go into that in a little bit as to why. But if you want to understand the material, you need to do the cognitive work to understand the material. AI is great at helping offload some of the stuff that doesn't really help you add that cognitive load. Makes it really efficient so that your study time is study time and not organizing, trying to find out where the notes are or whatnot, all these things, right? Um, but you still need to study. It's not going to replace your brain. Anyways, that was kind of a long tangent on this second article here. Really cool. A lot of really cool things are happening with AI in different industries, and this was as of 2021. So even going further, phenomenal things are happening. All right, the third article was from the Economic Times. This was an article referencing a doctor person on the podcast Diary of a CEO, which not related to AI, but if I would recommend this, I listen to it more than just for this. So let's see if I can X out of this, X out of this. Right. Main question here is what are we going to die because of AI? Is AI going to take over the world? Are we prepared for it? The doctor's response was like, no, we're not. So that's nice. Yeah, so they're kind of the doom and gloom person. Just to be careful about AI experiments, really. And it seems like a lot of people are talking about progressing cautiously, but nobody is saying that this is not a place that we should go down. I think the people that are smart and are also aware of all the risks know that there's not a future world without AI involved, just because of how powerful it is. Even if it does destroy us eventually, um, we're not going to stop just because of the nature of the human experience, right? So, anyways, interesting read. The next one, I did not want to create a free account, so I didn't read this. Now, this, you might think, was another news article, but in doing so, you would be wrong. This was the video. So, this is something, cool article and whatnot, but not a video. So this is one place where Gemini was not that great, is that it did not always give research articles or videos when I asked for them. So that was topic one. A lot of the stuff was a mile wide, inch deep, which is as it was supposed to be, right? What is AI? Kind of a broad overview. I do think that some of these research articles and whatnot were more on like what is AI being used for, and not necessarily what is AI. But interesting nonetheless. Now the second subsection was machine learning. This first article here was, oh, that's right. I think I was eventually blocked from reading this, and then I could have had it at a different time. So I think I was blocked, but then I wasn't. Anyway, so this talks about machine learning. Kind of a longer article here, and I'll go into this. The other article had this as well, but these different types of machine learning algorithms are kind of the basis of AI. And to start with, I think the easiest one to understand is just the linear regression. And this is, if you can imagine a graph, right? Where, let's say you're graphing, I don't know, day of the year and weather in Colorado, right? Or temperature and day of the year in Colorado, right? And so you'd see that in January it's kind of low, and then it kind of goes up higher in July, and then down lower towards December. So maybe linear regression isn't that helpful. But the idea is that you can use let's go for the first half of the year, January through July. You can use it would go roughly linearly up, right? Maybe, it kind of swoops a bit, but you can put a line relatively close to make it match somewhat with the data that you have. I probably should have had a better example here. But the idea is that if you input a single day in the year, that it gives you a rough estimate of what the temperature will be that day, right? So that formula is kind of the linear regression idea. And again, of course, probably a different, predicting sales based on advertising investment. That's a better example. That's right here. So, the idea is that the more you invest in advertising, the more sales you have. So you take a bunch of data, say, okay, we spent this much on advertising. How much did we get in sales? We got this much in sales. So you plot that point. You take a few more samples with the different varying levels of investment. You can see the sales go up with the advertising. So the idea is, like, if I spend X on advertising, how many sales can I expect, right? That's kind of what it's useful for. And so similarly, all of these other types of algorithms are meant for prediction. If I do X, or if X is true, or if these different, if X is true and Y is true and Z is true, and you do that for a couple of different variables, am I able to predict? Here's one: credit rating, right? So here, and this can be a little divisive sometimes, but if they live in this area, if they have this income, if they have this amount of debt, if this is their credit score, how likely are they to pay off their loan? So all of these models are meant for prediction purposes, and that's kind of the overview of the different models and algorithms that are used. I'm not going to go deep into all of them. They are fascinating. They are interesting. But that's the purpose of this, at least right now, is kind of get an overview of what they are. There we go. And now this second one is less of a research article and more of a, hey, this is the cool things that we're doing in this course. MIT has a cool technology program. Who would have thought? So not really a research article, which is what we were looking for, but an interesting article nonetheless. And this is absolutely a news article from the Associated Press. This is how we use AI. Again, cool things, but not a news article and not machine learning related. So another ding against Gemini there. This last news article was useful. You go machine learning versus deep learning, which really is just like a type. Deep learning is just a type of machine learning, as you can see here. But all of this is essentially about machine learning, right? Big into data collection. Got to make sure the data is good. Select a model, train the model on that. One of the lessons I learned from this is that with machine learning and like the underlying models for AI, is that they're based off of the data that we already have, right? So you train it with existing data. If we talk back to the linear regression with advertising and sales, you need to train the model based on the data you already have. And what does that mean? Take the data you have and you build the function from that data, right? If your data is bad, the function is going to be bad, right? If you train a model on bad data, it doesn't really matter how much predictive power the function would have, because it's trained on bad data. And this talks to, like, you got to make sure that you don't have bias in your data set, or else you'll have bias in your function, even if even if the algorithm is perfect, right? So that was one thing I learned from there. The biggest takeaway from this section, and the video was absolutely a video, right? The biggest takeaway from this section was really the focus on the algorithms are predictive, and they are optimizing for predicting your next word, or predicting what somebody would say. They are not optimizing for accuracy. So again, review. All right. So this next section, subsection 3, I didn't have access to this, so I moved past it because I'm not into paying for this stuff. I think all of these, right? Yeah. So the three remaining articles. First off, this wasn't a research article. Cool conference, but not a research article. This interesting article about workplace trends. Kind of shadow AI, using AI in secret. This is something that my department has been cracking down on. I haven't been using AI for work without permission. This is all outside of work. But yeah, there's like a shadow AI where workers are using it for, without telling their supervisors. And I think since I read this, there's also been a few articles about work slop, but I think I cover that in a later reading, so I won't go into that a lot here. So anyways, interesting article, but more about workplace trends than what was it supposed to be about? That's right, generative AI. The next one, same thing. Interesting article about workplace trends, about graduating seniors, but not about AI. And this last one was a minute video. It was interesting, but it wasn't that useful. So cool guy, keep doing it. But I mean, granted, his videos are better than mine. You can already see that that's cool, and you're just watching me. All right, subsection 4. This was just kind of the key terminology, I think. So this wasn't a research article, but it was interesting, and it was from IBM. So I trusted a little bit more because they are in the tech space. It was cool though. Large language models. We talked in the machine learning section about the different types of models. Large language models are one of those. Imagine we talked about the linear regression, but imagine if all of those were just words, right? Large language models work off of language. So if you input this article as the data, these words would be the data that it's based off of, right? And the idea is that if I type in, say, hey, what is an LLM? Then an AI trained on this data would be able to say, oh, it's a category of deep learning models trained on immense amounts of data, make them capable of understanding and generating natural language, right? So that's the large language model. It is a model that is where the data is a bunch of words. And I think in some of these other ones, they're saying that the parameters, the input parameters, are reaching billions of parameters, right? Billions of words, billions of things they can work with to predict. Natural language processing is a similar thing. It's just kind of more the use of using this model for language, which is kind of what Gemini does. This article was fascinating. I used it for the assignment, one of the assignments, and basically just has a bunch of AI related terms and the definition. Good read. This was a news article where slop was added to the Cambridge Dictionary as AI redefines language. Slop is one of the words that is, or like AI slop is one of the words that is coming up. I think work slop is a new one too that's not in this article. But yeah, so really interesting how artificial intelligence is kind of reinventing a lot of stuff that we're doing as part of work. And this last one, interesting article, but guess what? It is not a video. So all in all, this was, there were good gems in there, good articles, good. Well, there wasn't really a good video in this one, was there? So as far as using Gemini to identify readings, I'd say it did a pretty good job, maybe 5 or 6. But mostly because there were a few really good articles that actually helped me understand AI and whatnot. Even then, though, there were a few that weren't really useful for the particular subtopic. There were a few things. Learning how to use Gemini to study, for me, was helpful. I had never really thought of using it for study before, and so it brought up a lot more closer to home is like I need to have a cognitive load to actually study. So how do I use AI to help me with that? So that was an interesting one. Um, but yeah, I mean the main lessons from the readings, it's being used a lot. You gotta um, be aware that AI is predictive and not going for accuracy. So um, interesting readings. I'm interested to see the next one. I think moving forward, I don't know if I'll do this for subsection 2 because I've already read most of them, but I think a better way of getting the material I need is to just take one subtopic at a time and really focus my prompt in on that subtopic. Say, hey, can you find me a few research articles about this, and not be afraid to say this wasn't a research article. Can you get a different one? I tend to be a person who just kind of takes what I'm given and runs with it. So even though there's 2 research articles, if I can get the prompt better, maybe I'll go down to 1. We'll see. So yeah, that's the first unit's readings. I'll be doing unit by unit readings and then assignments. Think of it like yeah, units in a college class, where this one in particular has 3. Um, Future courses might have more. I don't know. But this first topic, the readings, were interesting. I feel like I understand more about AI, what it's used for, a little bit of how to what to be aware of. So we'll see how the assignments go. Thanks for watching.